Hi, I'm Teresa and I will now present the concept of Wonder, a vocabulary learning app that focuses on culture and international networking. We are living in a world that is more connected than ever before. It is easier than ever to communicate with people from the other side of the world. Through globalization we are connected, and yet languages and cultures set us apart. Even though we have designated English as the world language and thus can communicate with almost anyone, the mother tongue offers a different sense of communication, a sense of belonging. Therefore, it is more important than ever to learn languages and cultures to be able to communicate with each other on an equal footing in this international network. Let me introduce you to Bo. He's a 30-year-old project manager from Germany, currently living in Cologne, and he works in an international setting. Therefore, he needs to speak English daily. Bo studied international business administration and still is in contact with many fellow alumni because he likes to socialize. In his free time, Bo likes cooking and exploring dishes from different countries. He states that he is highly interested in and even fascinated by traditional recipes and their background stories. As Bo is engaged to a Dutch fiancée that he met during his studies, Bo's goal is to improve his Dutch skills. Furthermore, he wants to regularly learn some Spanish to keep his advanced language level to be able to speak to his Spanish grandparents. Overall, Bo's motivation is to better the communication with his loved ones and thus to learn their mother tongues. So what problem are we trying to solve? User interviews showed that vocabulary app users not only want to learn words by heart. Instead, they want to be entertained with mixed media, and most importantly, they are interested in learning about culture and traditions to get a deeper understanding for the language and ultimately for the associated countries. All interviewees stated that they aim to be able to speak to natives as they feel that this social exchange is the most efficient way to learn a language in detail. This leads to our problem statement from Bo's point of view. Bo needs a detailed and motivating mixed media app on language and culture that can be individually adjusted because he wants to be entertained while learning not only a language but also about the associated culture. We will know this to be true when we see Bo regularly using the app to make learning progress and ultimately when we see Bo confidently speaking in a new language to natives. But what struggles does Bo encounter when using a vocabulary learning app? Well, Bo already used apps to learn languages, but he stopped using it because these apps did not match his individual language levels and thus became boring for him. Furthermore, Bo does not like learning words by heart. Instead, he is interested in mixed media content as this keeps him motivated. As Bo has a strict schedule and does not like to waste time on learning only, he needs content that educates him and matches his interest, like recipes for traditional dishes. With these user struggles in mind, I conceptualized the vocabulary learning app Wonder. Wonder focuses on learning languages by exploring cultures and traditions. On this slide, you can see the first Usability wireframes of the onboarding process. Wonder does not provide long instructional slides, but starts right away by setting up the user's first language program. Directly after choosing a language, one can select or test the individual language level to make sure that the following lesson matches the personal needs. In addition, the user's personal goal is queried so that the content of the lessons can be tailored even more individually to the user. On the following onboarding screens, the concepts of the app is explained. To keep the user entertained, the app gets a classic game character. This is an idea that arises from the earlier conducted interviews. The user gets to know his personal travel guide, who explains the app concept in his native language. To make sure that the user understands everything, translations and visual cues like icons are provided. The user now interacts with the travel guide and already fulfills short tasks about the new words learned during this onboarding procedure. After the interactive conversation with the travel guide, the user can set up a second language program and set up a learning schedule. Now it is time to convince the user to create a new account. One has the possibility to save the progress so far by signing up. In the admin area, the user has an own avatar, an overview on the started language programs, and the individual progress. In the bottom menu, the travel backpack offers an overview of achieved reward items. By tapping on the clipboard icon in the bottom menu, the user starts a vocabulary quiz, and the third icon opens up the mailbox to chat with other community members. To create an own lesson with new vocabulary, the user taps on the burger menu in the upper right corner and selects the Lessons button. Now one can choose the language and the purpose of the lesson before starting to write down the first word on a flashcard. After labeling the front and the back of a flashcard, the user either saves the lesson or creates the next flashcard. When saving the lesson, there is also an opportunity to share it with the community and to add the lesson to the user's next quizzes. These last wireframes you see now show a quiz situation. The user listens to words, sorts or translates single words or phrases. It was aimed to use multiple media like audio and text to keep the quiz interesting. After creating an interactive low-fidelity prototype, it was necessary to test it in usability tests to see if there are any problems or uncertainties for my app users. 3 online testing sessions were conducted. The participants got several tasks to fulfill by using the prototype and were asked to comment on everything they do, think, and feel. When I found that there were struggles, I asked follow-up questions to get a better understanding of the problem. To sum up my findings, I then created a usability test report. The most important problems that I found were related to unclear instructions on a quiz task in the onboarding process, a missing screen to select a language level, irritating instructions and an unclear structure of a flashcard, and a missing opportunity to go back to the previous screen. As these problems were of high severity, I directly adjusted the matching wireframes and revised them. Other findings with slightly lower severity were that the participants were curious about the concept of a lesson and wanted further explanation, and secondly, that the icons and buttons were not consistent, which irritated my participants. To work on these problems, I added wireframes to explain the concept of a lesson and started to use a consistent button system. The usability report also showed that users wanted to get feedback on their quiz answers. This is an important interaction element that I did not consider for the first version of my wireframes, but I added it in my revision to encourage the user. Here you can see some of the revisions I've already done. The most important one for me was the revision of the flashcard screen, as all participants had struggles to understand this part. I tried to make it clearer by putting the back and front of a flashcard on one screen and edited the instructions. I plan to revise all instructions once again to make sure they are clear. Overall, I learned that the most wireframes were intuitive and easy to use. There were some irritations when wireframes were too complex or not clear enough on what the user needs to do. Therefore, my biggest learning is to keep things simple, clean, and explicit. For me personally, the most helpful learning was how to create user flows before sketching wireframes. Hereby it became much clearer what content and function is needed on single screens. The creation of user flows helped me to fully focus on the user's point of view and to come up with the first concept of my app very easily. For the next steps, I plan to create more user flows for other tasks that users come across when exploring the app Wonder and to sketch the matching wireframes. Besides, it would be a good challenge for me to take all wireframes to a higher fidelity level and to create more interactive functions. because until now my app only provides the functions needed to fulfill the tasks in my usability tests. So the only possibility to explore the app and fulfill the usability test tasks by now is to follow the happy path, and therefore I could not see what the user would have done with more interactive options in my prototype. They only told me about what they wanted to do. I guess it would be helpful to set up a fully interactive prototype and then again conduct usability tests. Overall, I like that I had to pass through the whole design thinking process during this introduction course. Nevertheless, the first steps to do a competitive analysis, user research, and creating a persona was not new to me, as I already did that in my bachelor and master program in detail. So I did not enjoy the first steps of the design thinking process as much as I enjoyed the last steps. As mentioned before, the creation part with user flows, wireframes, and prototypes was very helpful and kind of new to me. I only had self-taught knowledge about these steps before, and it was very helpful to get more explanations and a specific approach. I'm looking forward to deepen this knowledge and to create more prototypes. For me, it is important to switch from conceptualizing to actually creating and realizing an idea.